All right, everybody. I think we're live. I think we've been about 50-50 with the audio working. So I don't think I'm being told right now that the audio isn't working. I hear it's working. So perfect. We'll move on instead of me having to start over again like I've had to do a couple of times before. So I want to cover a couple of things with you all and then take your questions. As always, I really appreciate when you like and subscribe to this. It gives us the opportunity to let you know when there are future live Q&As going on. We try to do it every week that we're here in Washington, D.C. to discuss the issues going on in Washington, D.C. and in the district. So again, if it suits you, like and subscribe to this, and you'll make sure that you know when these things are happening. So you can ask us your questions, or we can try to get you answers to various things or get you helpful information on a host of different issues. So always appreciate that. I'm going to try to cover today formally what's going on with the China big tech bill, what's going on with some Venmo payment issues for small businesses, fuel and food costs, and of course, a big thing going on locally, what's going on with the train going over the St. Lucie River waterway. I'm going to cover those things formally and then move to some questions for everybody. So in this, I wanted to start with something going on with China and big tech. And this is, government on government, basically having to do with Chinese propaganda, Chinese communist propaganda that exists in so many places. So Chinese government officials have the ability to get on U.S. social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter and other things like that, and talk about the benefits of their communist system and how they want things like that to go on, and spew their propaganda about what they say is happening in Hong Kong, but it's really not the truth on the ground of what's happening, or things that the NBA likes to ignore, like what's going on with the enslavement of Uyghur Muslims and basically camps for re-education going on in China. They don't allow those things to be spoken about on social media platforms in China or in Hong Kong. So they come to our US platforms, talk about whatever they want. They don't allow things to be spoken about in that truthful way for what's going on in China. This bill that I've introduced, it's a reciprocity act. You could look at it like a sanction, and it basically says until U.S. government officials are allowed that kind of uninhibited access that China has to U.S. platforms here, the social media platforms, then Chinese officials, they're not going to be allowed that kind of access to social media platforms here in the United States. There has to be reciprocity, just like we want to see that in trade. We want to see free trade and fair trade. There has to be that in communication as well. We're not going to have them spewing their propaganda here and then not have the ability for us to speak about the benefits of freedom and capitalism and all the things that our Constitution affords us, and things that are wrong in China, like that enslavement of Uyghur Muslims and so many other things. And that's that reciprocity bill that I've been working on, basically, again, a sanction for what's going on in China. And again, I sit on the Foreign Affairs Committee, so this is very pertinent to the work that I do on the Foreign Affairs Committee. Move to something else. This is almost a public service announcement for small businesses. And this is something that we were warning about before in what the House Democrats, I believe they called it the American Rescue Plan. It was that $2 trillion spending bill. Try to add that up, right? $2 trillion, the ways that you can think about that. And what we talked about was how they wanted to use the IRS to look at people's transfer of money. And I believe the first number they talked about was $600. They wanted to monitor any transfers over $600, and they're hiring something like 50, 60, 70,000 more IRS workers, not to get you a quicker IRS return, but so that they can monitor you more. You can be assured of that. It's not to get you your return and your money back faster. That's not why the IRS is trying to hire more people. So what's going on with Venmo specifically is this. Previously, if you exceeded a Venmo transaction of $20,000 or more, then you'd get a 1099-K form from the IRS. Now, what they did in that American Rescue Plan, as they called it, it wasn't a rescue plan at all, but that's the name that they put onto it. The names are not always accurate for what they do. They moved that number to $600. So now for every $600 Venmo transaction that you have gone out there and conducted as a small business, now you're going to receive a 1099-K form for that. And what is that? That is the IRS, looking down on you, in in an even more way like a microscope to see what it is that you're doing. It's something that we warned about them wanting to do with the IRS, and this is that actually coming into play. So be on the lookout for that. We're looking for ways to move that back to the $20,000 threshold instead of down to that $600 threshold. But it's not going to be an easy thing to do. Democrats are in the majority in the House. They passed that because that's what they wanted, and they're not going to want to see that reverted back to something that is different, something that they moved away from. So it's going to be an uphill battle to get through that. But just a warning out there for small businesses that have had Venmo transactions over $600. You will see that 1099-K form. And then again, just a reminder, again, if you find value in the information that we're trying to put out to you, like this, subscribe to this, and you'll know when we're doing more of these. We're going to make sure as we go through this to put up the phone numbers for our offices, whether in Washington, D.C. or whether down in the district in Florida. So you have that information. You can always call us about any issue. And I always say this, look, if you're upset that the IRS is taking too many rings for them to answer the phone, or you had to be on hold for a minute and that pissed you off too much, let us know. The number one thing that we do is be a go-between between we the people, between we the people and the federal government agencies. Hands down, number one thing that we do, the IRS, the Small Business Administration, Social Security Administration, Department of Veterans Affairs, and the other 170 government agencies that exist out there. It's being your go-between, trying to help you out with the bureaucracy that exists in those agencies. So if these Venmo $600 payments that are being looked at by the IRS are causing you heartache and headache, and you need us to help you with this, talk to Small Business Administration or IRS or somebody else about this, let us know and we'll help you. Use those phone numbers. Let us know. We'll help you on that. So I want to move to something else. Lowering Fuel and Food Costs Act. This is actually a name of a piece of legislation that we're looking at this week. And again, House Democrats, they do a really good job of naming pieces of legislation, but quite often I think you should look at the name of the legislation and say, you know what, I'm going to look at this and kind of guess that it's not going to do exactly what it is that they're saying. It's great marketing, but it's not truthful. So let's talk a little bit about this Lowering Fuel and Food Costs Act. And you think of all of the things that you would think would be done to actually lower fuel costs and lower food costs, and then realize this bill is not doing that. So here's a couple of things that they're going to do in this bill. They're going to basically take this bill and say that there needs to be a special investigator to look into anti-competitive practices in the meat industry. So the price of meat, that's entirely related to anti-competitive practices in the meat industry. It's not related to the extreme rise in fuel costs that you have to take into consideration. You want to move cattle or any livestock from A to B, now costs that much more to move their food from A to B, or anything else that they need from A to B, to move a vet from A to B, that costs more money because of higher fuel costs. But they're going to say that there has to be a special investigator to look at the anti-competitive practices in the meat industry, because that must be the main driver of what's going on in the grocery store. Obviously, I'm being sarcastic there because it is not the main driver of what's going on in the grocery store. Talk about another thing that they put in that piece of legislation. Set up a task force that has to report to Congress on the resiliency of supply chain in 270 days. That's very not timely. There's nothing wrong with asking for reports to Congress to talk about resiliency of things that are very important to all of us. But 270 days, is that something that makes sense to any of us? This is something that there are very obvious solutions that Congress could be moving right now. I've talked about them in all of the previous live Q&As that we've done here. You know, things like changing the available operating hours for truckers who are on the road so that they can utilize the productivity that they see fit instead of being stuck on the side of the road. That's something that can change. That is federal law that can change. Or getting rid of the 18.4 cents per gallon gas tax on every single one of you that goes out there and drives your car, or the 24 cents per gallon diesel tax, right? That doesn't bring fuel back down to $2 or $2.50 a gallon. But if you're a food distribution company that has hundreds of trucks on the road, you can believe that 24 cents a gallon absolutely makes a difference in the bottom line and the ability to move goods from A to B in a more affordable way. Or going out there and looking at what's going on with the tax to buy new big rigs, 12% tax on any new big rigs out there. Get rid of that. We could get rid, as Congress right now, we could be getting rid of that 12% tax on big rigs so that it's cheaper for trucking companies to go out there and buy a new truck and get more or newer or more efficient trucks on the road. That would make a difference in the supply chain. But you don't see this legislation going through. And there are a number of other things that Congress could be doing that should be totally bipartisan. But just telling you as somebody that sees it from right here every day, I don't see Congress and specifically the majority working on this. And it's just as frustrating for me as it is for anybody else. So that's a little bit on that. There are ways that we can lower fuel costs. There are ways that we can lower the cost of groceries. And I want to bring up a video right now of something that I did on the Foreign Affairs Committee. And here's why what I was questioning a Biden administration official on the Foreign Affairs Committee matters to our fuel and our food costs here right now. I was questioning somebody from what's known as the Development Finance Corporation. That's an entity under the United States Department of State, the State Department. And what they were here talking to us on the Foreign Affairs Committee about is they want hundreds of millions of your dollars. Your dollars, you're going to work, the dollars come out of your pocket, they come to Washington, and they get redistributed in a number of different ways. So they want hundreds of millions of your dollars to actually promote a more friendly regulatory environment for oil and gas, but not for oil and gas in the United States of America, for oil and gas in places like Europe and other places. A more friendly environment for building cross-state or cross-country infrastructure. What is cross-country infrastructure for energy? That's what we're talking about specifically. We're talking about pipelines. So they want money to promote that in other countries, like over in Europe and other places. But do you hear them talking at all about bringing back the XL pipeline here in the United States of America between Canada and the US, and the fact that that killed about 25,000 jobs and 800,000 barrels a day of oil? You don't hear that. So they're trying to use your tax dollars to promote renewable fuel and non-renewable fuel sources both. This corporation, this entity that's led by the current administration, they agree with this for overseas, for Europe and other places, but not for you to help out your fuel costs, your grocery costs, because it takes fuel to get everything to the grocery stores. So let me play this video so you can see where the Biden administration is at on this and how frustrating it is to talk about them, because they don't want to answer. They're scared to answer that, yeah, it would be okay that we see these pipeline projects in the United States. So let's play this video.
You're asking,
should we promote those same policies that you're pushing for in Europe here in the United States?
I'm here to represent the Development Finance Corporation, which is making...
You're an American.
I definitely
should we support those policies that you're pushing for in Europe here in the United States? We agree on those policies and supporting them for Europe. Should we push for them here in the United States?
I definitely think that energy diversity and security is important globally.
So to include renewable and non-renewable sources of energy, you believe that should exist here domestically?
But it does exist, and I believe it should continue.
You want to see it fostered further. So let's go to another one. Cross-border infrastructure projects, you'd like to see those increased as you would like to see them increased in Europe. XL pipeline would be a perfect example. It was killed within hours of the Biden administration coming in. It was about 25,000 jobs and 800,000 barrels a day of oil. Would that be one of those infrastructure projects that we should renew here domestically as we're supporting projects like that in Europe?
I think we're pretty far off my remit on that.
We might be, but I'm asking nonetheless, should we restore that policy and put XL pipeline back in place?
Time has expired.
So again, this administration official, he was on Capitol Hill not talking about something hypothetical, literally there to justify their budget requests for what they want to do with your money, your hundreds of millions of dollars overseas to promote pipelines and renewable fuel sources, but also non-renewable fuel sources like oil and gas. But they're unwilling to support these policies here to help you, whose tax dollars they are taking to go support this overseas. It's absurd. It's the whole idea of rules for thee, but not for me. The idea of hypocrisy. This is a hypocrisy at its finest. So, I'm not going to beleaguer the point. You see what's going on. This is what we're trying to fight each and every day. This unfriendly environment to make life more affordable for we the people, everybody that's out there paying taxes. I want to cover one last issue before we go to your question. And again, it's one of the most important issues going on locally right now, especially if you live in the communities of Stewart or Jensen Beach, North River Shores, Palm City, Port St. Lucie, and you like to access the waterway. If you use the boat ramps in Port St. Lucie or Palm City, or you have your boat in a marina or docked somewhere and you have to go through the St. Lucie waterway and under the St. Lucie train bridge to get out to the Atlantic or to get back from the sandbar later in the afternoon, this is a bread and butter issue for you. If you do not click on the QR code that I believe we are going to put up here, or else go to our website, mast.house.gov, and go to where you find the link to comment on the Coast Guard survey. If you don't comment on this, you risk you're risking getting screwed in terms of your access to the waterway. Because here's what's going to happen. The Coast Guard is asking for comment for how they should schedule this bridge. Is it going to be down 45 minutes an hour as they are pushing for right now, which would block you from getting through the waterway if your boat is any higher than 6 feet, from getting through that waterway 45 minutes an hour. And they very well may use the last 45 minutes of 1 hour and the first 45 minutes of the next hour, blocking that waterway for a straight hour and a half, not letting boats get through and giving boaters only about 15 minutes an hour. This is literally what the Coast Guard is pushing for right now. They're asking for your comment on this. And the most important thing you can do if you care about this, this is not the appropriate venue to just air your grievances on how you might feel about the Bright Line train or train coming through there, which does get to operate their tracks. They are a part of the community and they do good things in terms of bringing, freight that we need for our supply chain. That's something good, but they don't get to block our waterway with 45 to 50 routes a day. So if you want to comment on that, what is important is that you tell the Coast Guard exactly how you think the bridge should or should not be regulated. That is the most important thing you can say. My comments reflect structurally how an individual should comment in terms of saying what you think should happen. I said, listen, I don't think that the bridge should be closed for 45 minutes an hour, blocking our local boat traffic for 45 minutes an hour. I think the opposite of that the bridge should be open for 45 minutes an hour so that all of us that are there locally, that live in the community and have restaurants and docks and things like that, because it's our community that they're passing through, that our community should have access 45 minutes an hour, and the train bridge should have access for 15 minutes an hour, the opposite of what it is that they are asking for. They shouldn't be allowed to butt up windows of time so that they close our waterway for a straight hour and 30 minutes. These are things that I lay out specifically what I think they should be doing. And if you care about that, please share it with your friends, your neighbors, your spouses, anybody, to let them know if you don't comment on this by mid-July, then the Coast Guard, they're not going to hear from you. They're not going to take it into consideration. And your access to and from the waterways is something that literally could be totally destroyed. So please take the time to comment on that. It's incredibly important that you do. Again, you can click on the QR code right there to do it, or rather use the QR code right there to do it. You don't click on it. You use the QR code to view where you need to go. And again, just, one other reminder, if you find valuable information in these live Q&As, subscribe. You'll know when these things are going on again. And in that, I think that I've reached the end of the formal part of my questions. I'll give one other quick reminder that is going on locally. We don't have toxic algal blooms in our water right now. Thank God. Let me see if I can reach. I do keep this jar of toxic algal blooms on my table forever. It's here forever. It's absolutely disgusting. And a number of other jars. There has been about a 100-mile plus toxic algal bloom measured on Lake Okeechobee. it is not in our local waterways, which is the case. If they don't dump that water from Lake Okeechobee, then we pretty much don't get these toxic algal blooms out into the St. Lucie and out into the Atlantic on our coast and things like that. So the toxic algal blooms are on Lake Okeechobee right now. As we've seen summer after summer, they are not in our local waterways right now. So let's go to some questions right now and try to get to those. Here's a question on cannabis. Will you vote for cannabis legalization? Which bill will you support? HR 3617, HR 1595. I'm specifically voting this November on this information. So this is not meant to be a campaign platform. So I'm not trying to talk to people about what will or will not earn your vote because I can't do that on an official platform, but I can talk to you about my support for cannabis legalization, or what's known as taking cannabis off the federal Schedule A. That's what makes it federally illegal. This has my support. It's had my support since I've been in Congress to deschedule cannabis as a federally controlled substance and give this back down to the states' rights for the states to control as they see fit. I do not believe that I am on HR 3617. I do believe that I am a co-sponsor of HR 1595. If I'm not mistaken, sometimes I get the numbers mixed up a little bit and I don't have them directly in front of me. And there are a number of different bills relating to this. Just as there's a number of different bills relating to term limits, and I'm on several of them, and there's some of them that I'm not on. But I'm sorry, I don't know the number to every single bill out there. But yes, I do support descheduling marijuana from the federal Schedule A and moving it back down to the states. Also, the co-chair of the Bipartisan Cannabis Caucus. So this is something that I do work on a regular basis. I had a meeting on it here today, actually, with one of my fellow co-chairs of the caucus, talking about legislation for cannabis as it relates to the Department of Veterans Affairs, as it relates to descheduling, as it relates to the fact that if you have a marijuana card and you're a veteran or other people, you could lose your right to own a firearm or have a concealed carry permit. So these are all things that we are looking at addressing, as well as safe banking, because you can't bank in the same way. If you're a landlord and you have a small strip mall or something like that, and you rent to somebody that has a dispensary, you understand the banking issues that go on with something like that. So those are some of the things that we deal with on the Cannabis Caucus and trying to deal with legislation that's related to that. So let's go to another question. They said Congressman Mast. I don't know if that was a mistake or not. Sometimes people do say that it's mast, like on a sailboat, but little things like that happen. Have we done anything about homeowners insurance, and can you help? So homeowners insurance, something that has actually affected me very personally as well. I want to say one of the most recent companies to cancel homeowners insurance in Florida was Fed National. I was one of 60 or 65,000 homeowners that had their insurance canceled. When? Right at the beginning of hurricane season, they canceled our insurance. My personal opinion is that was not coincidence. I think that that's absolute BS, that this company was taking our premiums right up to the beginning of hurricane season and then canceling our insurance. Absolute BS. That particular item is not something that is being dealt with at all in the House of Representatives, in federal legislation. That is being moved in state legislation. That is something that's going on in Tallahassee, being dealt with in that lane very specifically. Now, there is another insurance lane that Congress needs to work on, used to work on a lot more, but for whatever reason, I don't sit on the committee of jurisdiction on this. I have not seen legislation on this in some time, and that is the National Flood Insurance Program. As Floridians, we also know that that's a big issue for the state of, for us as Floridians, for the state of Florida. And there was a big push in years past to deal with this. I believe it was the Financial Services Industry, or rather committee, that was working on that specifically, but the Financial Services Committee has not brought forward in some time, I want to say a couple of years, a bill related to reforming the National Flood Insurance Program. So that's a little bit separate lane of insurance that is dealt more here in the House of Representatives in Washington, D.C. So let's go out there and look and see if we can find another question here, and we'll read this one. And by the way, I just got a note that apparently President Biden has announced that he's sending another $1 billion to Ukraine. So I'm going to address this before okay, actually, it's somebody's question here. So why is President Biden sending another $1 billion to Ukraine? The answer is, I do not know. And here's why me saying that is so important. I sit on the House Foreign Affairs Committee of the most powerful country across the world. And what I can tell you is that the administration, that being, let's say, the Pentagon, the State Department, they didn't come to me or any other members of this committee or the Armed Services Committee or other committees and explain to us, and I'm not just talking about Republicans, because I asked Democrats about this as well that were on these committees, and explain to us previously when they were sending $40 billion to the Ukraine. Think about that, $40 billion to the Ukraine. And I support wanting to see Ukraine defeat Russia very much. They didn't explain to any of us about what that actually got the American people for their money. Does the Ukraine win and Russia is defeated? Is there X number of killed Russians because of the bombs and bullets that are going over there? Is there the fact that the Ukrainian government can survive another couple of months because they don't have any exports or anything like that? And so they need assistance as a government just to keep the lights on. They didn't say at all what they were sending $40 billion over there for. And they did not explain at all to me why they were sending an additional $1 billion over to the Ukraine. I did not vote to send that money over there. You look at what's going on here in the country and what could be done with $1 billion or $40 billion or anything else here domestically, the inflation problems that are going on. And in that, you just see that we need to pay attention to what's going on here with our border, with our inflation that's going on here, with our supply chain that's going on here, and a host of other issues. And it needs to be prioritized in a better way. I guess that's the most frank way that I could say it. It needs to be prioritized in a better way. So do we have any more questions that we're going to? So, all right, I think we've exhausted the time that we do on this. We try to keep these frequent but short so that it doesn't take up the whole evening of all of you out there. Again, like and subscribe. If you find value in this, we'd love to have you on for the next one and the next one. Share it with people. We always try to answer your questions. Reach out to our offices if there's anything, literally anything that we can do. Small Business Administration, IRS, Social Security, Department of Veterans Affairs. Those are always some of the biggest ones. There are others that exist out there, of course, but any government agency, if you have a problem with them, I feel like I sound like the A-team right now. If you have a problem and nobody else can help, and if you can find them, maybe you can hire, the A-team. Obviously, I remember that from my youth very well. Probably one of my favorite television shows, that. Knight Rider, just giving you all a little personal information right now. Love the A-team. Loved Knight Rider. One of my sons' name is Magnum, after Magnum PI. My other son's name is Maverick, after Maverick, you guessed it, who was a great movie. Very much enjoyed that one. My daughter Madeline and my son Major. They don't have specifically 80s named names, but anyways, that's a quick diversion on a little bit about me personally. So in that, I wish you all the best. I thank you all for tuning in and asking your questions, and let me talk to you all a little bit about what's going on in Washington. I look forward to seeing you all around home as I'm around home this weekend. Y'all take care.